ECW December to Dismember was an indescribably bad show. Hey, don't take it from me, those are the words of Paul Heyman himself affirmatively uttered on Steve Austin's podcast. Those who have seen the show are likely to agree with that assessment, and those who haven't witnessed it have perhaps heard of its putrid legend. It's perhaps the worst thing to have the letters ECW stamped on it aside from the Hardcore Revolution video game. December to Dismember marked the end of any and all faith fans had in WWE's ECW brand, assuming it hadn't been killed off already. And it resides in a very special pantheon with the 1995 King of the Ring, 2000 Halloween Havoc, and 2011 Victory Road. One assumes that together they run on a continuous loop on a Titantron in hell. At barely over 2 hours and 15 minutes of runtime, the show is roughly 2 hours too long. So, with the holiday season upon us, let's unwrap perhaps the most fetid lump of coal that Vinnie McClaws has ever left under the trees of his fans. You'll find that even after 13 years, the unmistakable stench still remains. I'm Sam from Cultaholic.com, and here are 10 things you didn't know about ECW December to Dismember. Join us! Number 10. Extreme Mystery Meal. December to Dismember was built around a 6-man elimination chamber match for the ECW Championship to be defended by the 5-month-long title holder, The Big Show. His scheduled opponents included Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Test, CM Punk, and Bobby Lashley. Also taking place on the card was a tag team match pitting the Hardy Boys against Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury after the latter duo accepted the Hardy Boys Open Challenge. And come showtime on Sunday night, December 3rd, 2006, those were the only announced matches. Fans who wanted to see something vaguely resembling ECW were forced to take a leap of faith, an actual leap of faith, not the Hardys DVD, knowing only 2 of the matches going into the show. In all, 6 matches occurred on the pay-per-view telecast, a full 2/3 of them complete surprises to everybody outside the locker room. In fairness, however, a handful of ECW pay-per-views in the company's final 2 years were of similar composition, as it just seemed like Paul Heyman was fit to cobble everything together with yarn and bubblegum at the last minute. Number 9. Thanks for coming. Because the ECW brand had been pretty much cemented as a distant C show by the time, many of the talents on the Dismember card could have been termed not ready for primetime players. ECW originals like the Full-Blooded Italians and Balls Mahoney were barely a step above Shark Chum on the food chain, while Kevin Thorne, Matt Striker, and Sean Daivari would have made up the bottom rung of the Raw brand. So perhaps it's no surprise that 2 of the individuals that wrestled on the show were taking part in their only ever WWE pay-per-view matches. One was understated wrestling machine Sylvester the Predator Turkai, who tagged with Elijah Burke to crush the FBI like 2 grapes. The other was the Vampiric Ariel, who scored the fall in a mixed tag bout using a curious method in putting away Kelly Kelly. Turkai was quietly released from the company 6 weeks later, while Ariel was fired in May of 2007, reportedly following a confrontation with Batista. Number 8. Interpromotional War. The Hardy Boys match with Nitro and Mercury was perhaps the best of the night by a fairly safe distance. Frenetically paced in parts while still resembling a classic formula tag team bout. The match came to be just 6 nights before the pay-per-view when the Broken Brothers issued an open challenge for any team to take them on at the pay-per-view, and the Reformed Fur Coat Fraternity accepted that night on Raw. But somebody else accepted the challenge as well, the former New Age Outlaws. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, or rather BG and Kip James, were off in TNA teaming as the Voodoo Kin Mafia, or VKM, which are Vince's initials, get it? At the time, the VKM were looking to turn heads by calling out WWE at every turn, particularly their former allies Triple H and Shawn Michaels. After accepting the Hardy Boys challenge for a match that was certainly never ever going to take place, the former Outlaws briefly invaded a Raw brand house show in Knoxville, Tennessee, 2 nights before the pay-per-view. I guess you could call it a publicity stunt, but to put it mildly, this wasn't exactly DX trying to invade Monday Nitro. Number 7. A Paul Heyman Guy. One of the few bright spots of ECW at this point of time was 28-year-old CM Punk. The former Ring of Honor World Champion may not have been an ECW original, but one has to believe that had ECW lived throughout the 2000s, the gritty, what you see is what you get Punk would have entered into the Extreme circuit at some point. Because of his wrestling background and general image, WWE fans latched onto Punk pretty quickly, and he was arguably the brand's top star next to Rob Van Dam. Because of Punk's popularity, Paul Heyman lobbied to have him win the Elimination Chamber match, becoming the ECW champion in the process. But McMahon was adamant that Bobby Lashley had to win the match, and of course, that's the ending that we got. Also scrapped was an idea of Heyman's to have Punk start the match with champion Big Show, and within the 5-minute period before the 3rd man entered, force the 500-pound giant to submit to the Anaconda Vice. Despite Big Show himself being all for the idea to put Punk over big, McMahon also turned it down flat. So if you're a Punk fan, you really hate this show, don't you? Number 6, show's over. The main event ended as McMahon wanted, with muscle-bound hero Bobby Lashley overcoming Heyman's heel contingent to become the champion. First, he demolished Hired Gun Test before bloodying Big Show en route to polishing him off with a charging spear. It wasn't too much of a secret at the time that Big Show was on his way out of the door, turning down a contract extension and leaving WWE for over 1 year while getting his body into much better shape. While the fans at the arena in Augusta, Georgia rejected the majority of the event, they saved a little more warmth for Paul White. Reports state that after the event went off the air, the crowd in Augusta gave Big Show a standing ovation and chanted their gratitude toward him. Big Show was born in Aiken, South Carolina, very close to the South Carolina-Georgia border, which Augusta is also near, so he was wrestling somewhat locally that night. Bob Holly remembers Show being miserable before the event, not wanting to even wrestle due to his deteriorating condition, so for him to receive that kind of respect afterwards is quite nice to hear. Number 5, a real-life hardcore match. Once the show ended, die-hard ECW fans and annoyed WWE viewers alike followed the lead of Comic Book Guy and were on the internet within minutes registering their disgust throughout the world. Aside from a lively tag team match that got the party started and a little bit of brutal fun inside the chamber, the show was pretty bad all around with little in the way of genuine ECW fare. And sadly, fans at home missed the most exciting brawl of the night. When the show was over, reports indicate that a somewhat large group of fans got into a full-scale fight on one side of the building. Brian Alvarez wrote in Figure 4 Weekly that security personnel were apparently tied on the other side of the venue where the wrestlers were stationed, so the scuffle went on far longer than anybody would have expected. One can only speculate as to what caused the skirmish. Did one guy tell another that his wife was uglier than the booking and out came the fisticuffs? We may never know for sure. Number 4, get me out of here. WWE has gotten kinda depressing in 2019, with stories of so many wrestlers reportedly feeling their pride in the company diminishing, leading them to asking for their releases. Thankfully, we can all enjoy this video and reflect back upon 2006, when wrestlers reportedly felt their pride in the company diminishing, leading them to ask for their releases. Some things never change, I suppose. According to Stevie Richards in a 2012 interview, both he and Tommy Dreamer, a couple of genuine ECW originals, wanted out following December to Dismember and asked for their respective releases. Dreamer lost to Daivari on the main card, while the seldom used Richards defeated Rene Dupree in the Night's Dark match. Win or lose, it was clear that neither man was being held in the same regard as they were a decade earlier, and the ECW rebirth didn't exactly smile on the forefathers that built the original territory. Richards noted that then talent relations head man John Laurinaitis denied both men's requests. Richards was ultimately released in the summer of 2008, while Dreamer finished with WWE at the end of 2009. Number 3, but who's buying? When you roll into pay-per-view Sunday with just 2 announced matches and neither match is a 50-person Royal Rumble that could occupy 90 minutes on its own, you're not putting much on the shelf for the consumer to look at. While nobody was really gonna plonk down $40 to see Matt Striker versus Balls Mahoney or the Odd Couple battle the Horny Monsters on their own, there's a reason why you announce a fuller card when you go into hard sell week. And fans caught on to the paltry composition of December to Dismember, as it was the least bought WWE pay-per-view of all time. That's pre-network era anyway. At a scant 90,000 buys, the event was lapped many times over by the surrounding WWE fare, and even AEW's first 2 pay-per-view outings convincingly beat it as well. To ECW's credit, the event came 1 week after Survivor Series, which lapped December to Dismember in buys 4 times over. A Jesse Ventura level conspiracy theorist might deduce that WWE sabotaged ECW by scheduling the show 1 week following a Big 4 standard, because really that's a pretty baffling decision to make. Number 2, Encore No More. At the time of December to Dismember, WWE ran split brand pay-per-views. Raw and SmackDown each had 5 to call their own, while ECW technically had 2 between Good Son One Night Stand and this wretched nightmare 3 weeks before Christmas. Come 2007, however, WWE decided to pull the plug on the split pay-per-view concept, after just 3.5 years of using the events to supplement the Big 4 shows and flesh out each brand's identity. While One Night Stand continued onward as an all-hands event without the ECW motive, December to Dismember ended up biting the bullet as a result. There were indeed plans for a second December to Dismember under the WWE banner, as December 2nd, 2007 was earmarked for the second event, and it would have taken place in Charlotte, North Carolina in today what is the Bojangles Coliseum. That event was cancelled scheduled close to 10 months in advance and removed from the calendar. After holding 16 pay-per-views in 2006, WWE trimmed that itinerary down to a dozen come 2012, and it was necessary. Pre-WWE Network, who had the money or the time for so many supposed supercards. And number 1, they buried Paul. Heyman apparently kept going to McMahon during the pay-per-view, insisting that the fans were going to bury what they were delivering to them. And the ill feelings from the event carried over into the next day, with McMahon and Heyman apparently at each other's throats over the way the card turned out. The two are said to have argued on the plane to the Raw tapings in South Carolina and continued their bickering in the production meeting at the arena. And then it happened. Heyman was done. He was escorted out of the arena that Monday and summarily sent home from the company. A notice was posted to WWE.com claiming that slumping TV ratings and a disgruntled roster were the causes of Heyman being removed from this post. His last appearance aired the following night on ECW's Sci-Fi show, a tearful promo in which he ordered Lashley to give Big Show a rematch. Reportedly, Heyman turned down an offer to return to creative in the company's developmental program and subsequently parted ways with WWE, not returning for over 5.5 years. If December to Dismember was the final nail in the ECW coffin, then the exodus of the mad scientist was the backhoe full of dirt sat beside the grave.
Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you like what we do here at Cultaholic, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Cultaholic. And no matter what you do, don't ever forget to hit subscribe and join us.